welcome back to Jamie and Olivia's OJ podcast. I announced that incorrectly, but we're rolling with it. It's only the third podcast. I'm allowed to mess up a little bit. I still think we sound pretty good overall.
I do think so.
Even if we do that like audio overlap, I think it's part of our charm.
It's part of our charm.
We're very charming. I think that's what you get when you act like when I'm listening to a podcast. I want to have two real people talking about whatever like they want to talk about.
Yeah,
and
like,
just enjoying themselves.
One of my favorite podcasts is like the Backyard whatever. What is their name? I don't remember their name. I love those two. If everyone knows who I'm talking about, probably do.
Do I want to admit my favorite podcast?
No. No.
I listen to a lot. I watch a lot of reality TV, specifically the show Survivor. So my favorite podcasts all have to do with discussions around Survivor, but not On Fire with Jeff Probst. My favorite's the Survivor Specialists, and they have banter very much like ours.
Yeah.
So
that's what makes it cool, because it's interesting to listen to people argue.
Yeah, especially about things that you're interested in. Yeah. Like, I think you'd want to go into something more amusing.
Yeah.
Probably
will. Yeah. Anyways, so this episode is going to be about like just the general events in sports from May 11th to the 17th, kind of.
This is going to be mostly Jamie blabbing at me and me being like, So
I did the research for this, and so, which happens a lot in podcasts where like one person knows a lot and then the other person
I'm sure
just
like
puts in
when
you're going to be able to talk about
stuff. I'm sure when we get back into like NBA and NFL season, it'll probably switch a bit more because like obviously for like F1, you and I can both talk and like know what we're talking about. Like,
I think you're going to be really interested in the IndyCar drama, which is going to be the last part of the episode.
I mean, I know nothing about
but you're
IndyCar,
just going to...
So
you like motorsports, so that's what's going to be...
That's true. I've been interested in getting into, like, the motorcycling ones.
Really?
Dirt biking. Well, yeah, because it looks cool.
Wow, I'm actually surprised about that. I don't have any interest in that.
Well, I said I might be interested. That doesn't mean I'm actually going to go through with it. 'Cause I have a lot of stuff going on currently because we are still in school.
Yeah.
Because our school is on trimesters and we never get to leave.
Never.
But it means I get to be stuck with Jamie for an extra 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, because she's ditching me.
I can't help that I graduate before you.
You could have held off, got a second major.
I could have.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't.
Well.
Less debt for me. Let's blow this podcast up so I can hang out with Jamie more.
Yeah, so then we can move near each other. And yeah,
that would be really cute.
That would be great, because then I could just like drop out.
You'd never have to figure out the major problem if you don't need a major.
Yes. Anyways, since I will be talking about chit-chatting this most of the time, I'm gonna start off with some stuff in women's sports, because we are women and try to talk about women in sports.
Progressive. Be progressive.
Start off, it was the start of the WNBA season.
Didn't see that.
Which is a great thing. There's a lot of...
Sun have had a terrible start.
Yeah.
Shut up. I'm allowed to say it, you're not. It's only 2 games, so it's fine.
A lot of new big names coming in.
Beckers.
Even there were some other ones that I can't remember the names of.
Beckers.
Yeah. Luckily...
all the UConn women.
Miss pushes her girlfriend off a I told you about her. I can't Pierce? I can't remember her name. But she didn't get a draft pick, which was the greatest.
Yes,
she was in college for 7 years, so makes sense. She's now like,
well, I mean, I think the big news coming out of that, not to interrupt you, the WNBA is the Angela Reese, Caitlin Clark teams.
Yeah.
And the Fever and the...
Reese is on. I can't remember. I need to...
It's purple.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we're bad sports podcasters.
Yeah.
We're trying, guys.
But their drama in the beginning already.
Well, okay, here's the... Okay. So I'm in a class right now about Black athletes in sports called the Black Athletes Protest. And we're specifically talking a lot about Caitlin Clark and Angela Reese because
their rivalry is one of the biggest ones.
But
in
it's
WNBA.
Not a real rivalry, actually, if you look into it, because they yes, obviously there was drama this week, between the two of them, because think like one of them pushed the other
Yeah.
down.
Oh,
But like they
100
don't
yeah.
play the same position. And like the way it's presented in so like they're not directly competing against each other.
Yeah.
And then the way they frame Caitlyn versus Angela is like I don't want to get too much into it because I know this can be like a controversial topic for some people because a lot of people go to sports to try to be like escapism, but it's almost impossible for me to like not to notice it now that I'm being educated
Yeah.
about it. I mean, they're very much framing it as like a great white hope for women's basketball for Caitlin Clark. And by doing so, they are
I
painting
have seen stuff
Angela
about
Reese
that.
as
Yeah.
the bad guy. And I mean, they're playing, I think, like 5 times this year, which is like easily the most for
I
anyone in
think
the
so.
WNBA. And it's purely because the rivalry gets
It
clicks.
gets
But they both
people.
denied it. Like, I mean, and
Yeah.
again, the way they frame it, like Caitlyn does something Angela does, but like Angela's going to be the one that gets broadcasted for like being aggressive. Anyway, I mean, I think like maybe if we blow up more and people want to hear about this, like I'd happily talk
yeah.
about it some more because I do think it's a really interesting topic. And that's more what I'm knowledgeable right now about the WNBA versus the actual players.
I know what I want to see is Paige and Caitlyn go up against each other again, especially after what happened in the championship 2 years ago. Like that was a big thing that went down.
Oh,
and
I'm
so,
from Connecticut, girl. Like,
yeah, and you're obviously pissed off at Caitlyn. Like, she did something that most people wouldn't agree with. And then also something with the WNBA season was the winners last year. I think it was New York Liberty, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it was. They got their championship ring, and it was really cute because they had like earrings inside.
That's so cute.
And so I love the feminine tidbit that's not like outwardly feminine.
I really appreciate that. I mean, again, I haven't paid too much attention to the WNBA until recently. And I mean, that is because Caitlin Clark has been putting it on the map just by being as
100%.
phenomenal as she is. And so hopefully this season you and I will like at least do more research and reading into it. But I mean, I really only follow Connecticut because I'm biased and it's a terrible start for me. So, I mean, what else do you need to know?
And then next up is something in the soccer world, which both of us barely know anything about, but this is a big thing. So back in 2020,
He's gonna talk at me, and I'm gonna smile and look pretty.
Back in 2023, for the World Cup series, the Women's World Cup specifically made $570 million, which go them, but they want to hit 1 billion in the next one, which means they're hoping to bring in a lot more people than they did, which is great for women's sport that they do expect more to be brought in.
I think it's definitely been being put on the map because I can't get too political. My class is I'm already a generally pretty political person, but my Black athletes protest class is not helping this case. I mean, I think that's because there's been a lot of breaking down of gender stereotypes recently, though, just as a like general statement. And I think people are realizing that like, yes, women can be very impressive in sport and be at the top of their game in class and whatever.
I would argue they're more impressive, but that's just me being a woman.
Feminism.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I think it's probably equally as impressive. And I mean, I think there is an unfair like gender bias towards the male athletic build being like peak perfection. And then there's readings on this. I mean, sorry, you're getting a bit more of a deeper podcast right now, but I guess that's good because we're supposed to be getting in there. I mean, there's the role of like misogyny, specifically like in general towards any woman, but like especially misogynoir, which is a term that like Black women face, because when you're looking at the epitome of like athleticism, you view a Black man and a white woman typically.
Really?
Yeah, if you look into it. So like Black men are perceived to be like the top athletic build under
well,
the
I
lens
know
of
that about Black
misogynoir.
men, but like my brain goes to like Serena Williams or something.
Well, that didn't happen until she broke the barriers.
Fair enough.
So if you look at it, like if you were take tennis out of the way, name a Black swimmer.
There is none.
There's
like one.
3. But
I do think I remember one.
Yeah.
But it's not very
yeah, exactly. Or like
swimming isn't
like
swimming's
if you
a very
were to
white
think
sport.
of a female basketball player, Who's the first person?
Well, my first brain is I'm in love with Paige Beckers, but then I would probably go like, yeah, I'm in
Yeah,
love
I
with Paige
mean,
Beckers.
and if like, I mean, this is like a general thing, but it's usually viewed as white women, and then obviously we have the history in the U.S. is like segregation and everything,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of things trying to keep Black people in general out of sport, and then Black women get hit with the misogyny and the sexism, so they're like double screwed over. And I mean, there's a ton of stuff in the media about it. I can recommend some books if people are interested. You can let me know in the comments, I guess. But I mean, there's a lot of really interesting studies around that. And
Well, yeah.
I guess like this is kind of like on topic for the podcast, but it's just kind of off topic. I'm sure you and I have discussed we want to do a full podcast
Well,
on
yeah.
like gender, especially in
But
sport.
like that's stuff we can talk about because
Yeah.
it is a big thing in sports is misogyny and racism. There's so much.
And like the worst part is I don't like it's so ingrained in our culture to where it's like you and I as women are like just hearing about bigger women's sports, which is why we want to get into talking more about podcasts and getting
Yeah.
more female voices
Yeah.
In the world out there on the internet for people to listen to. Which is a good
'Cause
I mean, it's great.
I didn't grow up watching any women's sports.
No, I mean,
like,
okay, we kind of did because like UConn women's basketball was really big.
yeah, but
'cause the
I
women are
didn't
great.
have that.
But like that is it.
Yeah.
So and then I guess like Olympics, you'd watch some of the like,
Yeah,
women's
in
sports, but,
Olympics,
like,
I knew all of like the female like
yeah, but in
gymnasts
terms
and
of
swimmers.
professional sports, you like don't hear very much about
Mm-mm.
it, and so it's great. Like obviously we now have a women's hockey league. We have
Yeah.
the WNBA, which has been around for a bit longer, obviously. And
Well,
like,
the women's rugby league is also new this
I'm
year.
so excited. Boston Banshees, like, come
Yeah.
on.
I really like the Gemini, the Minnesota
That-
Gemini.
that's a
It
really
goes
solid
along with
name.
their like the twins, the Gemini. It just
Yeah.
goes. Minnesota names are by far my favorite, and I could go
She's
off about
biased.
Minnesota names. I think the twins are better than Brewers makes sense because alcohol. Wisconsin.
Twins and Gemini are like part of the same coin, where they're both just really good because of where it is.
Yeah, because of the
like,
Twin Cities.
The classic Celtic name.
Ah,
I mean, like I like Connecticut Sun a lot for women's basketball.
that's a pretty name.
Well, it's because we have the Mohegan tribe, and they play out of the Mohegan Sun Casino,
Mm-hmm.
so it
Yeah.
like fits together very nicely.
But
for
like
us.
that's a new thing in sports is the rugby. Now there's finally a professional volleyball league.
It took them long enough. People
I
love
know
volleyball.
but volleyball only started getting popular these past couple years because of all the stuff with like Nebraska, University of Nebraska and stuff, University of Wisconsin too, to point out because we were good. We are.
No.
I think we are still
mean,
good.
And it's great that like we as a society are starting to realize that like yes, women can be phenomenal athletes, but I mean it's taken a lot of work because women in general are, I mean for years were stereotyped as like docile and like
Yeah.
being like working from home and being a homemaker and things like that. So I mean that's also another reason why we're not viewed as seriously. So the fact that we're breaking down those barriers I think is very important and very good.
I think the next professional sport to come out of this like new emergence of women's sports is going to be softball because
I mean there already
what
is a softball league, no? Am I crazy?
No.
Okay, I'm crazy.
Maybe, but it's very minor. I don't know.
I mean, obviously it's not talked about very much.
Well, but I'm thinking this year, all I hear on the news is women's college or not basketball, softball.
Really? Okay.
I have been because there's one softball girl. She's throwing pitches that if you
I
equal
have
it to
seen that.
baseball, it's 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's this one girl. So Ella was telling me about this. There's this one girl that she's so good at hitting home runs and stuff that they were intentionally walking her, and so she went like 7 or 8 games with no hits
because they
kept
walk her.
walking her.
That's crazy.
Because she's that good, and then they had
Yeah.
bases loaded, so they couldn't walk her. And guess what she did? Grand slam that baby.
Okay, that's really impressive. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's great that like women are
Mhm.
starting to get appreciated as athletes versus just like I mean, it's important for breaking down barriers. I don't have like a full thought because I didn't expect to be going into this today. So like this is
women.
fresh off my brain. But I think it's very important to get more women's sports and to intentionally try and broadcast them. I mean, that's why I think the NBA is actually doing such a good job with it because they've
Yeah,
been
I agree.
very much like they have like women in sports days where
Yep.
they'll like have like all female announcers and everything and like really try to encourage more women both in the NBA but also broadcast the WNBA as a whole. So like if you go to the Basketball Hall of Fame, for example, like they're making it Basketball Hall of Fame, Springfield, Massachusetts. They really have tried to like show off the WNBA there as well, which I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame too, actually. And I mean, granted,
I've
I
never
think there's
been
only
to a Hall of Fame.
oh, okay. Well, I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame when I was much younger, and granted, like I do think there have been women in professional baseball, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken,
Yes.
but like nothing about that there.
They're thinking of making a professional women's baseball league, but in my opinion, I argue more for softball. But
Well,
that's
honestly,
just
let women play baseball.
yeah, true.
Like honestly,
100%
I think
true.
I mean maybe the NBA is different because it's much more like like physical, like interacting
Yeah.
with each other, and I mean there is just a general like a muscle difference. Like
Yeah, well, it's like swimming.
yeah, but like in terms of baseball, like you're not really like physically fighting anyone. Like you're running
No.
around a base and you're hitting a ball and you're throwing a ball. If you do it good, who
Women can
cares
be
what
fucking
gender you are?
fast.
Yeah, exactly. So like why not? I don't see any problem with that. And if you have women good enough to like throw 100 miles per hour,
Yeah,
let them in. I don't see any problem with it.
I think at one point,
Someone needs to break a barrier.
after I go back home, I think one day I'll take a day trip to Minneapolis, bring some friends, and there's a women's sports bar where it's only
Ooh,
women's sports.
That's fun.
So got to go try that out because why not? That's another thing that's a big new thing. All you hear about is new women's sports bars.
Oh, it's getting much bigger, and I can only. I mean, if everyone in this world is like my grandpa loves women's sport. You know, my grandpa, the guy who
Yeah.
works at a cemetery.
Oh yeah,
Well, runs a cemetery. Let me make sure. Who is like aggressive mustache walked around when Osama bin Laden got assassinated with the like bullet hole shirt through the man's head. Loves women's sports. If he can love it, so
my
can the rest of
God.
America.
literally.
I guess we should move on a bit though.
Yeah, I kind of get off this topic. It was a big weekend in Major League Baseball. It was rivalry weekend, which I'm gonna argue a lot of these rivalries aren't the true rivalries, and I think you are too. It's mainly state rivalries.
I do not see Red Sox Yankees on this list.
No,
they did not play.
because it was the subway battle.
The Mets and the Yankees.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying I think it's more state rivalries because if you look at it, it's Angels versus Dodgers, Cubs versus White Sox, Phillies versus Pirates, Reds versus Guardians, Mariners versus Padres, Giants versus A's, Nationals versus Orioles. It's all the same state.
Or general area.
General,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, and I would agree with you on that. But if we're calling it rivalry weekend,
You want it to be Red Sox Yankees.
and
And I would argue it should have been Cubs Brewers, not Brewers Twins.
I don't think Brewers and Twins are like that historic of rivals.
That's why I'm saying it should have been Cubs.
Okay, so let me get into this. I'm gonna focus on the the northeastern teams because that's what I'm more familiar with. Okay, but you're gonna talk about the Midwest.
Yeah, I'll talk about almost all of them.
So in terms of like Mets and Yankees do have a rivalry. Like they do.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
actually-
you're gonna have a rivalry when
Yeah.
you are in the same city.
Sox fans and Mets fans will team up at like
Oh, I
Fenway
love that.
Park and chant beep you Yankees.
Love that.
Like both teams. Like we have a bond with the Mets because we both hate the Yankees so much. But like if there is a team to hate the Yankees, to call a true rivalry, there is no rivalry in sport more known and historic than the Red Sox and the Yankees. I mean, Let's be real.
Yeah, I
You're-
think everyone knows that.
Yeah, like it's Red Sox Yankees.
Yeah.
We hate each other.
And that's why, like, that's why I'm saying there's a lot of arguments. I think, yes, the Angels are a Los Angeles team and the Dodgers are a Los Angeles
I wouldn't
team.
think
I
those
would've
two
put-
are rivals.
I would have put the Dodgers against the Padres instead.
I mean, I'm personally not super familiar with LA teams, and I don't watch much of the National League anyway. But like, I know enough about baseball to know that I don't think those two were rivals.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it was mainly state rivalry / city rivalries.
I would agree.
That's just basically what it was. There was some, I paid a lot of attention to last season, so now, like, coming into this season, I don't pay attention to
I mean, the
changes.
Chicago's a Chicago rivalry.
I think there's been a lot of upsets here in this weekend. Cubs versus White Sox. If the White Sox would have won that series, I would have been cackling, because the White Sox, yes, they did beat the Brewers in one of the games, which I don't know, I didn't look at the actual score. I just know they won the series, so they won majority of the games.
I know what winning a
Yeah.
series means.
I'm
not that
I'm
inept.
not explaining it to you. I'm explaining it to everyone. Not
At
all of
our other roommate.
yeah, not all of our fans have to be baseball fans. They could be learning.
That is true.
Come on, think about it.
It's so late.
But
And by late, it's 8:34.
yeah, the Reds beating the Guardians is actually a big change, because last year the Guardians would have easily won, because the Guardians were the Brewers' biggest competitive last year in their conference.
Do we like Guardians as the name?
Cleveland Guardians?
Yeah. Because they changed their name.
Did they?
Yeah, they used to be the Indians.
Oh, yeah, I do like the name better, obviously.
Yeah.
That was part of the whole every sport change.
Not every, but like a good
Not
chunk.
every, yeah. Like, you
Yeah.
still have
Blackhawks.
the Blackhawks. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, Mariners also shouldn't have won against San Diego, so, like, that's insane.
Nick's gonna be mad.
Well, no, Nick likes the Giants.
I thought you liked the Padres.
No, that's San Diego. He's from San Francisco.
I mixed up my sand cities. This is not okay. Contrary to what today's podcast would make you believe, I really like geography and I should know better. But again, it's 8:34, and I, though not a night person, am not a brain cell person past like 6:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Giants beating the A's makes sense. The Orioles, unlike last year, have been doing complete doo-doo fart. So the Nationals beating them this year is kind of insane. Same with the Angels beating the
Weirdly
Dodgers.
enough for the Orioles, though. So one of the first baseball games I ever went to was actually an Orioles game.
Oh, really?
I think my first was technically a Red Sox game, but we went on vacation in Baltimore when I was younger.
Oh.
Which, by the way, I know people dislike Baltimore and call it an unsafe city. I rather liked where I went. But anyway, we went to an Orioles game, and they were playing the Blue Jays, actually.
Oh.
And the Orioles lost. Very sad, but they were pretty good that year. But because of that, I actually really like the Orioles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, even though they're in my division and like technically
Yeah.
a rival, I actually really like them because I have like such a fond childhood memory of going to that park.
Huh.
Sorry,
Interesting.
I interrupted Jamie.
Technically, my first game was
Yeah.
it wasn't at the Brewers Stadium.
Was
It
it
was
the
at the Twin Stadium, but that's because my family would rather drive an hour and a half to go to the Twins Brewers game than drive 3 hours to go to the Brewers game.
Yeah, anyway, I have a fond childhood memory of the Orioles. So because of that, even though I should hate them, I actually quite like them.
Well,
I also
the
just like
saddest,
Orioles as birds.
the saddest thing to come out of this weekend is rest in peace poop.
Huh?
So when the Phillies and the Pirates match up against each other, it used to be where it was P0 when they had 0 points, 0 P. The graphic has now changed and poop is gone. There is no longer the poop matchup. And it is the saddest thing to come out of this weekend.
I mean, they're still poo, technically.
No, they're like
P-O-P-O?
poop. I don't know. I think it's like one on top of each other.
P-O-P-O.
But that doesn't count. Poop is the best matchup. and it's
I'm
gone.
cringing. I don't know why this needs to get brought up.
It needs to get brought up. Every other fan will understand.
I don't like Pennsylvania sports. I'm very biased
yeah.
against them, so
I
I don't
know.
care.
Of course.
I don't like the Phillies.
Okay, but I guess we'll talk about the real upset. The Brewers didn't win the series, but the Brewers broke the Twins' 13 game streak.
As a converted Brewers fan for the National League, that makes me quite
You
happy.
want to know how they did it?
Walk
By
off
a
grand slam.
stolen home run.
No.
Yeah. Jackson Churio, our second year player.
I know him.
Yep. He stole the home run that would have allowed the Twins to win the game.
Wild finish.
Mm-hmm. So that was the greatest moment.
So for you and your rivalry,
It was
you're really
amazing.
happy. My rivalry isn't apparently a good enough rivalry for rivalry weekend, even though it's the biggest rivalry in all of sports.
Yeah. I don't even know who the Red Sox played against, but it was in New York.
I know I was paying it. I lost my phone. I was paying attention to the results. Well,
I was paying
there it is.
attention to the Twins Brewers like I always would be.
Oh, my sister texted me.
It's really sad that it was so early in the season because my family does love going to the Twins Brewers game.
sure.
We went last year. We always go to it, but
Oh, the Orioles game got postponed.
oh.
We were playing the Mets yesterday, but yesterday
Well,
was
it's the
Tuesday.
weekend, not
I
the
know,
weekday.
I'm doing my best.
You got to go to like Sunday or Saturday.
My app doesn't go that far back.
Yes, it does. You just need to scroll.
What I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm inept with technology.
Yes, she very much is. But
That
yeah.
was cruel. You didn't need to confirm it for our viewers. You're supposed to lie and
Don't
make me
worry,
look
I'm doing
better.
all the work here.
Atlanta.
I don't think you were a part of technically rivalry.
Actually,
weekend.
there is a history there.
Really?
The Atlanta Braves used to be the Boston Braves.
Oh, that would be rivalry weekend.
I don't
worthy.
know if it really counts because they moved to Atlanta like back
Yeah,
decades ago. But like, yeah, I mean, they used to be the same city.
I guess that could count. I think I could agree that could count in rivalry.
I'm not
weekend.
counting it.
I'm counting it. I think that could.
But yeah, there is a slight history there, weirdly enough.
Like the Twins versus the Brewers isn't like the worst matchup. If you can't go against the Cubs, you got to go against the Twins because there's no other city that we.
I wanted to go against the Yankees.
I know. I would have loved to go against the Cubs, but that's not what happened. Okay. Moving on, so we don't continue arguing about baseball because that's all this episode's going to be if we do.
Baseball.
I know.
I like,
but I think you're going to be really interested in IndyCar.
I know nothing, guys, so you're gonna get my fresh reaction.
Yeah, but they all know you. If they watch the second episode, they all know you love drama.
I do quite enjoy drama. I'm a glutton for drama.
So,
but not to me. I want to hear about everyone else's problems.
So last weekend was qualifying for IndyCar, Indianapolis 500, which I learned is the Indianapolis 500 is a 2-week stint.
I thought it was always 1 week.
No, it's 2.
I know, you told me that the other day, and I was surprised then, and I need them to know that I was surprised as well.
Yeah, so it's like practices, qualification on the weekend, more practices, race. So like this weekend it'll be Monaco, and then it'll be IndyCar, and then it'll be NASCAR.
NASCAR's the lamest.
But there is people that actually they'll race at the Indy 500 and then like go to Atlanta to go race in NASCAR later that day.
Busy week for them.
But anyways, so first off, I think I'm just gonna put this first before all the drama is that a rookie got the pole position for the first time since 1984.
Ooh.
And that was Robert Schwartzman, Oscar Piastri's old teammate.
I hope you all
Prima
felt
driver.
my eye roll.
I like Robert anyways. I do pay attention to a lot of the Prima drivers.
I know you do.
I do want to go see. There's some races in Wisconsin.
We were really close to going to one last week, actually, but we're both broke college students, so it fell through. Very sad.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a big momentous occasion, especially because Prima, this is their first year running an IndyCar car.
That's crazy.
So like putting a rookie on pole for the biggest race of the
Well,
season.
I mean, they clearly have a good history
Oh,
of
yeah.
like knowing how. I mean, I guess that's what they're hoping.
The Italians won in
That's
something.
what they're hoping Audi will probably do.
Oh,
in
100%.
F1, very similar. I just don't.
I don't see it happening.
Anyway, that's a side tangent, and we can't go back into Formula. So continuing on.
No, the Italians won in something last weekend, and that was IndyCar. Because Prima is an Italian brand.
Oscar didn't win either
No,
last weekend,
that's
so
the
they
thing.
lost everything.
Everything's gone for them.
Yeah.
But the biggest drama to come out of it was there was an illegal car that was illegal
Le
last.
gasp.
That was illegal last year too.
Le gasp times 2.
So Penske is the car, like the team that had 2 illegal cars,
Interesting.
and so
But were they like underweight?
No. So IndyCar is a lot different than F1.
Okay.
IndyCar is a spec series, so every car is the same exact car.
Yeah.
With only like minor changes depending, like the motor. Like
Honestly,
you can only have-
I think I would like that for Formula as well.
I don't.
I think it
Formula's
equalizes.
meant to be a technological.
No, I know, and that's why they do
advanced sport.
constructors and everything,
Yeah.
and like I get it on that front, but like maybe like once a year, just line them all up in like a tractor and see what happens.
But the thing that was wrong was there's something in the back of the car that's supposed to absorb the impact of it, and something was off about it.
Okay.
They don't think it was actually anything that would have gained an advantage or like gained them time, but if it's illegal, it's the principle of the matter. They have to do something about it. But the biggest problem is Roger Penske, who owns Penske Racing, also owns IndyCar itself and the Indianapolis Motorway.
Wait, that's the team?
The team owner
That's cheating.
owns IndyCar and owns the Indianapolis Motorway, which his reputation is probably gone to shit because of that. And there's a lot of arguments now, especially coming about because this has been going on since last year. Were they looking away when they investigated the cars? Because they do investigate the cars just like F1.
Potentially.
And they argue, whoever's the president argues that no, they weren't looking away. It's just something they knew wouldn't give them extra time, so they just didn't look at it hard enough. But also, I think the people who are inspecting cars should not be the people that are owned by the team's owner.
Shady.
So a lot of people are now arguing that it should be an outside company that does it, which probably should have been there from the start.
Yeah.
But
fairness and equity are important. That's what the entire first part of the podcast was talking about.
Roger Penske fired 3 executives after this was found out. And Will Power, who qualified 2nd, and Joseph Newgarden, who qualified 12th, are now in the last row in 32nd and 33rd. And no one has ever won or even gotten on podium from 22 and above. So
crazy.
They're never gonna get those positions back.
Never say never. There's always that like one in like a billion shot. It's just highly unlikely.
Whatever.
It's just like that hand passing through the table thing. You don't think it's gonna happen until all the molecules do.
I'm also a part of the team pissed off that Newgarden who had an illegal car this year, had a legal car last year. He won the Indianapolis 500 last year, and
an illegal car.
Yep. And I am on team angry because Pato is my favorite, and he was in 2nd, and
I'm sorry.
He was in 1st most of the race, but then Newgarden overtook him at the
end
with an illegal car.
That is drama now.
It is a drama because it's been months, and this has been overshadowed because every single race they do look at the cars to check them. And it's been a year, at least. I think they might have argued 2 that they have had this illegal car.
Intriguing.
Luckily, Penske's last driver, their 3rd driver, because they have you can have upwards
He wasn't
of like
cheating?
4. He wasn't cheating. He had a normal car because
Woohoo!
they said they switched through it, and so he had a
I
newer
look like
model.
I'm putting on chapstick with the
But yeah, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Going into this weekend, and then
Goodbye, microphone.
I can't hold
Rest in
it.
peace.
And then this
Here,
is the first.
hold it like you're putting on chapstick. It's a
No,
great
I do
way.
this. Pinch my finger.
I've been doing that too. I have little cuts in my hand.
Pinch my finger. Another thing is for the first time in history, the Indy 500 is completely sold out, which means there's gonna be
First time in history, really?
Yeah, there's gonna be 450,000 people in Indianapolis.
That's why it's
and
took
that's
so
why
long to sell out. Okay.
And that's why it's 1 in 1,100 Americans will be attending this weekend.
That's actually insane.
And people are
Indiana randomly big in sport. Sorry. Okay, I
don't know.
phrased that
Maybe
really
that
weirdly.
could be something I figure out later. I don't know what Indianapolis's like history in sports comes from. Or specifically in motor racing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like it would probably have to do with like Midwest being a central.
I think it
the
just
automotive industry
is just the Midwest is so centric.
I mean, this isn't Indiana, but I'm now thinking of like the Kentucky Derby. Like, why Kentucky of all places? Like, it's just such a random place to have such a like historic.
I think my little giggle about the Kentucky Derby was that I was at the same weekend of the Miami Grand Prix, and so it's like Americans are either watching Miami or watching Kentucky.
Did you hear actually that every horse in the Kentucky Derby is related
from,
to Secretariat?
Secretariat?
Have you seen
Yes.
that Disney movie?
Yes.
I loved that film as a child.
Yes. I do think even horse racing is a little interesting.
Oh, I think so too.
I think I
blame Secretariat for that.
100%.
Yes.
And I think it's just I have a long time love for racing.
Well, we talked about that. Well, I don't think we talked about it on the podcast now, did we?
No.
Jamie's family betrayed her.
So, if you want to hear about this, I come from specifically my dad's side of the family, even my mom's side. Both of them were actually big into motor racing. My uncle, who owned a business, also sponsored a car for some like smaller level like NASCAR racings, and I from Wisconsin, which has a history of motor racing, and I had cousins who used to motor race and all this. And as a kid, I called it a go-kart, but it was more like a side-by-side, like a very early on version of a side-by-side that I drove the shit out of that thing in the yard, and I used to pretend I was racing and stuff. So I loved racing. And the Cars movie is my favorite movie of all time.
I love the Cars movie
too.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie of all time, but I loved Cars. Was my first movie in theaters, actually. And I owned all the little toy cars, like all of I owned White Wall Lightning McQueen, and I owned
White Wall Lightning McQueen is the best.
Okay, I owned Fillmore and Sarge, and I owned Ramon, and I owned Mac, and I owned asshole cars that drive on the side and go achoo next to Mac, and I owned all the cars.
Okay,
I owned all the cars, Jamie, and I loved cars. And so I liked that part of racing. So I think it makes honestly though, I didn't even really know racing was like a real sport other than the Indianapolis 500. Like I wouldn't have even known how to start.
But
I would use the number 95 though, for the record, if I were to ever be in motorsport. And the fact that Liam Lawson is not doing so when he claims to be a Cars fan is absurd to me.
But anyways, my family betrayal continuance of
Apologies.
You're fine. I love Cars too. I could speak extensively on the topic. I think even more than you can.
100%. We both have the childhood memory.
Yeah. But my brother started ice racing with his 4-wheeler, and I did ask my family to ice race also. I wanted to race. I wanted to.
She's a need for speed.
Yeah, I had a need for speed. But my mom said yes, but my dad said no. So that was the end of it. And I think it's mainly because my dad knew how expensive it was because his nieces and nephews raced, and he saw how much money my brother was putting into it, and so he went, no.
Betrayal.
I had a love. I had a passion. And I'm in a racing sport.
Swimming, yeah.
I I swim. Like, it's all about racing.
She
Like,
goes splish splash really fast.
yeah, I have that kind of competitiveness in me, but whatever.
She's not bitter at all.
Not better at all.
Not bitter at all. No, I luckily don't have that like want or like regret from earlier in my life. I think had I known, I probably would have wanted to try it because like I do enjoy like go-karting now, and just, like I had like an electric car and everything, but I don't think it would have been like a main sport I would ever like have wanted to do, just because I get really stressed when I get too close to somebody like go-karting or something. Yeah, you'll like power through it. I also crashed, so like let's not pretend like I wasn't also aggressive. You're just
crashed because of my own doing.
I didn't crash because of my own doing. Other people crashed into me.
Annika crashed into me.
Annika also crashed into me.
I think we know the true enemy.
But she wasn't the one that gave me the really bad one. It was some older guy. He crashed into Annika as well, but he like crushed me, and then he crushed Annika, and it was
bad.
It was bad. She got like whiplash.
Go-kart racing, but yeah, I have.
Jamie's really good.
That's also why I regret everything.
She knows the lines.
I know the lines. It's something I like. It's fun. I don't know. I like being aggressive if you're going too slow. I have also bad road rage with that. Well, I think that's pretty much it.
I think so too. I hope you enjoyed our mini driving ride.